What's going on, guys? So I am inside of a brand new Jeep Wrangler. Now, I am not an expert when it comes to Jeeps. I'm not an expert when it comes to Wranglers. I think the entire time I've had my channel, I've reviewed 2 Jeeps. One of them was actually 3 Jeeps. I think I had a Trackhawk once. I did a Grand Wagoneer, which was the level 3 package, which was like a $115,000 SUV with night vision, a thermal night vision, and a Jeep Gladiator, which is as close to a Wrangler as I think they make. But this is interesting. This is a rental vehicle, by the way. I'm really trying to understand the appeal of one of these, and I suppose if you go off-roading, that's really what this is meant for. I really couldn't understand someone getting, the more, I guess, non-off-roading version of this, where it has like your standard road tires and such, because these have strange driving dynamics. I want to talk to you about what's going on and what's going through my head as I drive this. Now, the cool thing about this is that they've added a lot of technology. It has a huge screen on it, finally. I know that before in the past, even if you got the maxed trim package, you only got a pretty small screen. This one doesn't appear to have navigation on it, though, so you might have to add that. But aside from that, this thing is pretty loaded up. You have your 4-wheel drive controls down here, front and rear locking diff. You have 4 upfitter switches or auxiliary buttons. That's cool. So a lot of really interesting things, plus a sway bar disconnect. So when it comes to off-road prowess, I can absolutely see why somebody would want this. But from an everyday ownership perspective, if you're not going to be off-roading, there's some things that just kind of confuse me. It's not overly quiet when you drive it. It's kind of noisy. It wants to kind of wander all over the place, especially if it's windy. You can hear the wind hitting the front windshield constantly. It has kind of a weird helicopter noise. When you roll one window down in your car and you're going down the interstate, how it gives you that helicopter noise. I get that occasionally when all the windows are up. This one has a removable hardtop. That's already included. And it's compact on the inside. It does not feel like you have a tremendous amount of room in here because the body of it is narrower than the footprint. And it's interesting. It's an interesting vehicle. It's not unpleasant to drive, however. It's kind of a nice drive. From a ride characteristics perspective, it feels a lot like a 3/4 ton truck, at least a modern 3/4 ton truck. It's not the smoothest ride you're going to have. It has a bit of a bounciness to it, especially if you're going over expansion joints. Fuel economy is, I don't know. I don't know if I want to call it average for this type of vehicle, because some of these smaller SUV type vehicles are starting to get really good fuel economy. This one's been averaging 18.3, and we've been on the road for 30 minutes now at highway speeds. This is a hybrid as well, so we're in a hybrid vehicle right now, and that was confusing to me because I didn't honestly even know that Jeep made a hybrid Wrangler until I got in and I go to start it and I don't hear anything. And at first I thought I got into the wrong rental vehicle, but no, this is a hybrid vehicle, and we're still getting some pretty, I'm gonna say, disappointing fuel economy out of it. But I think if you're buying this for fuel economy, if you're buying it for ride comfort, if you're buying it for space, if you're buying it for pure comfort at all, if you're buying it for ergonomics, you're probably not doing it right. I imagine that most people who buy one of these either want the feeling of pure off-road capability, or they just want a Jeep. They want a Jeep Wrangler. It's been their dream vehicle. My daughter has wanted a Jeep Wrangler, but then she could never justify it because it was never practical for her needs. Has a tiny steering wheel, has a lot of tech, a lot of safety features, adaptive cruise control. It's a cool vehicle, but again, I think the story here is all the 4-wheel drive characteristics it has, right? The front and rear locker, the sway bar disconnect, and all the auxiliary switches, because I know most people who probably wire into those are going to wire up light bars and more light bars. I've seen some of these Jeeps just totally decked out with lights all over them. I don't think any of those are going to be strong enough to power a winch, so you'd still probably need to wire a winch up directly to your battery and then and a solenoid. But most winches anyways are controlled by a remote outside of the vehicle, and you turn them on with a disconnect from under the hood. But it's a cool vehicle for sure. I'm not gonna lie, I like it. It's one of those vehicles that I could see kind of having, if you plan on going to places, maybe towing it behind your RV. A lot of people tow these behind their RVs because you can disconnect the axle. But I know, again, there's a lot of people who absolutely love Jeep Wranglers. And if you're one of them, Kind of explain to me why, if you don't mind. I would love to know. Now, again, this is a rental vehicle, but it's a brand new rental. It's got 4,659 miles on it. You know, when I hopped into this vehicle, there's a lot of things I kind of like about it, and then again, there's things that are just strange. I like the fact that they're using a softer touch material, but some of the panels on top feel a little flimsy, even though it seems high quality when you're looking at it, especially some of the stitch work, the nice display up front. I mean, everything is really nice and high resolution. I'm going to be honest with you, if I were just basing it on the inside characteristics, I like it a lot. I know that the front windshield can be problematic. I actually had a good friend of mine who has owned like 9 Wranglers. That's all he'll ever own, and then he hands them down to his children and family members and things, and he says that the front windshields are very prone to rock strikes and getting cracked. And I can see how that happens. I mean, it's a very, very flat piece of window that's almost, you know, vertically sticking straight up. But it's a cool vehicle overall. This is the Rubicon trim. So this is going to be one of their higher trim packages, and from the outside it's got a really nice aggressive look. Overall, it's one of those vehicles that I think you get as a toy. I don't know how many people would get this as just a pure daily driver. Actually, I take that back. You know, the same people who would go out and buy a Hellcat or would go out and buy a Bronco, you know, all these vehicles, you know, they end up being daily drivers. They don't really end up being their purpose-built, you know, usage. Basically, you know, you get something like this, and the bragging points is it's trail rated and it can do all this crazy off-road maneuvering, and you can take this thing out to Moab. But at the end of the day, I think most people get one of these because they love the way it looks, and they just want something that they can drive every day, get out, stare at, and go, wow, that's cool. Or what if I took it here or there or somewhere else? I know I could make it through it. You know, again, kind of like a Raptor. Now, I see a little bit more practicality behind a Raptor, only because at the end of the day, it's an F-150 interior. It's still a good size pickup truck interior. If you have a family, you can fit everybody in there and you don't have to feel cramped. You feel as if you're at least getting the space. Now, yes, a Raptor's probably twice the price of this, but at the same time, though, a lot of people are willing to spend the money for something that gives them this perception of, you know, utility or capability or off-road prowess, even if they don't ever plan on using it for that. I do like the fact that the technology has finally caught up to these. Again, I've been in several Jeeps, and I've had several buddies of mine who are just absolutely Jeep fanatics. And what I've realized, again, is that they tend to be a little lackluster in terms of technology, but inside of here, it feels as if everything's kind of caught up. I mean, the interior of this Jeep feels very modern, feels real nice inside, feels as if they've done a great job with it. Now, looking at the back, you could easily fit 3 people across the back. It actually looks bigger or wider in the back than the overall lines would make you believe. This is the 4-door Wrangler. Again, this is the Rubicon package. The doors themselves are really compact. It's really interesting. Everything's right up against you, and the door just feels really, really short because it is. Auto headlights. You know, it's a cool vehicle. I have a hard time understanding its place in the whole scope of vehicles unless you're just looking for something that is off-road capable. If that's what your goal is, if you're looking for something that you can take out to the desert, you can take out to the beach, you don't have to worry about getting stranded, you want to take the top of it off, and you want to be able to just have an open top experience, maybe pull the doors off. It seems to me as if that's kind of the real story behind this. But I wanted to make a little video on it because, again, this is a rental. I would never get one of these as a loaner vehicle because it's just not the type of content I have. And there are a lot of RVers out there who tow these behind their Class A, B, and Cs, and I would love to know, if you are a Jeep Wrangler fan, what do you love about it? You know, what's the primary thing that makes you absolutely love your Jeep Wrangler? I was wondering if these classic cars were going to a classic car show, and it looks like they are. Certainly is a beautiful day for it. Okay, so we are back in the Jeep, and I wanted to give you kind of my final driving impression of this Jeep since I've put about 125 miles on it over the last day or two. And what I'm going to tell you is that, again, it's such a different vehicle. It drives different, it handles different, it's kind of all over the road if you're not careful. And it's probably because of the relatively short wheelbase, maybe because of the larger tires, or because of, you know, how far they're spread out. It's hard to say, but the truck definitely, or this Jeep definitely tracks in an interesting way. You almost feel like you always have to have like a really quick response to something that could happen from a steering perspective. The steering is very loose, and just small inputs really makes this thing want to move all over the road. Now, the turning radius is actually pretty dang awesome. I was really blown away by it. This thing can turn and make a circle in a very tight area. And that's actually pretty dang impressive, especially in off-roading scenarios where you need to maneuver. But overall, you know, the things I like about it is it's got a pretty compliant ride. It's a little noisy on the inside at highway speeds, though it's quieter when you're driving, you know, around arterial roads and smaller roads, because I guess this roof that's on here, it's all fiberglass, I believe. It resonates a little bit more when you're on the road. From an acceleration perspective, this being a plug-in hybrid, it does not accelerate very well. It is kind of quick and peppy right off of the line, but anything above like 10-15 miles an hour, if you're really giving it some gas, you can tell that the engine's just not moving it as fast as you might want it to. Overall, though, the fuel economy has been honestly pretty bad, mainly because this is designed to be more of, I guess, a city vehicle, because it's a plug-in hybrid, so you can drive it around on pretty much just the batteries if you're just going slow. But once you get up to highway speeds, the engine's definitely going to kick in, and your fuel economy is going to drop quite a bit. I've been averaging, again, 18.6 miles per gallon, and I've put quite a few miles on it since I've had it. But the overwhelming story here is just the way it handles. It's interesting. It's kind of squirrely on the road, if that makes sense. It doesn't feel cheap. It doesn't feel as if you can't drive it or manage it. It just feels different than anything else I've driven, and that's kind of the story behind it. Overall, though, it's a nice vehicle. I mean, I feel like the fit and finish, the quality inside of it is definitely above any previous generation of Wrangler. The look is gorgeous. It's a beautiful look on the outside. It garners a lot of attention, especially, you know, considering there's Jeep Wranglers everywhere. Everyone who has a Jeep looks at this thing, and even the hotel parking lot, you could see people just walking by staring at it, because it has a very bold, aggressive look. But overall, I like it. Would I get one? Probably not. It's just not really practical for me. But if you are into off-roading, serious off-roading, if you want to use this as a tow-behind vehicle because you go out to places where you really want to be able to explore and get around, or you just want something that's super sporty and nimble, this might be the right vehicle for you, especially if you're a Jeep fan. I've heard mixed reviews when it comes to towing, and I generally don't recommend towing behind Jeeps unless it's going to be something really small, like a Patriot, or, you know, one of those teardrop style, you know, off-grid, off-road, compact travel trailers. But I wouldn't tow anything heavy behind this. I wouldn't put like a 5,000-pound RV. I'd probably stick to that 2,000-pound range. I don't know the towing numbers on this vehicle. Again, I wasn't prepped to do a review on this vehicle. It was the rental vehicle that was provided to me. I think I was asking for like a Nissan Altima, and this is what they gave me. It's got its perks for those who are looking for this type of vehicle. And again, it has a lot of road dominance. A lot of people stare at this if that's what you're looking for. You're looking for something that is super off-road capable. I imagine this would probably be, you know, on your top 5 vehicles that you might choose. I know if you're a Ford fan, you're probably going to opt for like a Bronco, but if you're a Jeep fan or a Chrysler fan, this would probably be the route you'd want to go. And it's a fun vehicle, but here, I'll accelerate so you can kind of hear what I'm talking about. Kind of sounds like a remote control car when you're accelerating. But yeah, it's a pretty cool vehicle. Anyways, leave a comment below. I'd love to know your thoughts, especially if you're a Jeep owner, because I think Jeep owners would probably love this, especially, again, given the fact it's a plug-in hybrid. Anyways, guys, if you haven't had a chance, please take a moment, subscribe to the channel, and give me a thumbs up. We'll talk to you again very soon.